Respect is not simply about politeness or good manners. It's deeper than that. It's about recognizing the inherent worth of another person. When someone respects you, they acknowledge that your thoughts, feelings, and boundaries matter. They see you not as an extension of themselves, but as a whole individual with your own identity. Respect is the silent agreement that says, "You are human, you are valuable, and I will treat you as such." In families and friendships, we often assume that love is enough. We believe that because someone loves us, respect will naturally follow. But love without respect is fragile. It becomes controlling, manipulative, or dismissive. You can love someone deeply and still belittle them. You can love someone and still ignore their voice. Without respect, love turns hollow. It loses its ability to nurture and sustain. Respect builds trust. When you respect me, I can trust that you will listen even when we disagree. I can trust that my boundaries won't be violated and that my vulnerabilities won't be weaponized against me. That trust becomes the soil in which love grows stronger. Without respect, there is only fear. Fear of being judged, dismissed, or hurt. And fear corrodes even the strongest bonds over time. Think of the people you feel safest around. Chances are they're not just people who care about you, they're people who respect you. They don't talk over you, they don't make you small to feel big, and they don't demand that you shrink in order for them to shine. That sense of safety is what allows relationships to flourish. It gives you permission to be authentic, knowing you won't be diminished for it. When respect is missing, the effects are subtle at first, a joke that cuts too deep, a decision made without your input, a boundary ignored because you'll understand. Over time, these small cracks widen, resentment builds. Distance grows. What was once closeness starts to feel like a cage. Disrespect doesn't always explode loudly. It often erodes quietly until the relationship is unrecognizable. Respect also has a way of shaping identity. When we grow up or live in environments where our worth isn't acknowledged, we start to question it ourselves. We internalize the disrespect and begin to treat ourselves the way others have treated us. That's why respect isn't just about relationships with others, it's about the relationship you hold with yourself. It sets the standard for how you will allow the world to engage with you. And here's the truth: respect is not optional. It's not something to hope for if the other person feels like giving it. It's the foundation. You can't build a healthy relationship without it, any more than you can build a house without a solid base. You may try, you may decorate it beautifully, but eventually the cracks will show. Respect is the groundwork. Everything else depends on it. When family or friends fail to respect you, it's not just uncomfortable, it's unsustainable. The absence of respect creates a silent drain on your spirit. It makes you question yourself, it makes you walk on eggshells, and it makes you compromise in ways that chip away at your dignity. Love may tell you to stay, but respect, or the lack of it, tells you the truth. The way you see yourself sets the tone for how others see you. When you carry yourself with dignity, when you believe in your own value, people tend to respond to that energy. On the other hand, when you doubt your worth, when you constantly compromise or downplay your needs, others often follow suit. The mirror of relationships reflects what you project, and that reflection begins with self-worth. Many of us were taught to be humble, to avoid making it all about us. But humility does not mean erasing yourself. There is a difference between being considerate and being invisible. When you consistently put yourself last, when your needs are always negotiable while everyone else's are fixed, you send a silent message that your voice doesn't matter. And over time, the people around you start to believe it too. Self-worth is not arrogance. It's not about thinking you're better than anyone else. It's about recognizing that you are equal. Equal in value, equal in dignity, equal in the right to be heard. When you embrace that equality, you no longer settle for relationships that diminish you. You begin to attract or demand interactions that honor your humanity rather than exploit your silence. Boundaries come from self-worth. When you know your value, you no longer see boundaries as selfish but as necessary. You understand that saying no is not rejection, it's clarity. You realize that letting someone cross your limits repeatedly is not kindness, it's self-betrayal. And once you stop betraying yourself, others have no choice but to recalibrate how they engage with you. There is also a quiet strength in self-worth. You don't have to shout it, prove it, or argue for it. It shows in the way you carry yourself, the way you pause before saying yes, the way you stand firm when someone tests your limits. That quiet strength often speaks louder than any confrontation because it communicates. I know who I am, and I will not be treated less than that. The absence of self-worth makes you dependent on external validation. You find yourself waiting for others to notice your effort, to acknowledge your pain, to reassure you that you matter. But self-worth flips that script. It says, even if no one applauds, even if no one understands, I still know my value. And from that place, respect is no longer a desperate request. It becomes a natural expectation. When you build your life on self-worth, relationships shift. Some people rise to meet your new standard. They adjust, they respect you in ways they never did before. Others may fall away, unable to accept the version of you that refuses to be diminished. That can feel painful, but it's also clarifying. Self-worth doesn't just protect you, it filters your relationships so only the genuine ones remain. Ultimately, self-worth is the ground beneath every choice you make. It decides whether you stay silent or speak up, whether you settle or strive, whether you allow disrespect or walk away from it. When you honor your own value, you teach others how to honor it too. And that simple shift, starting with yourself, reshapes the entire dynamic of respect in your world. Boundaries are often misunderstood. People hear the word and imagine distance, coldness, or rejection. But boundaries are not about shutting people out. They are about keeping relationships healthy. They act like guideposts, showing others where connection is safe and where it becomes harmful. Without them, even the closest relationships can unravel under the weight of unspoken expectations and repeated disappointments. Think of a boundary like a guardrail on a bridge. It doesn't stop you from crossing, it makes crossing safer. The guardrail is not an obstacle, it's protection. In the same way, boundaries protect connection. They prevent resentment from building, they stop small hurts from turning into deep wounds, and they make sure love can flow without being poisoned by overreach or neglect. When you set a boundary, you are not punishing someone. You are giving them the map to love you well. You are saying, here is how I can remain close to you without losing myself. That clarity is a gift. It removes the guesswork. It creates conditions where both people know what respect looks like, and that shared understanding allows the relationship to grow stronger. Boundaries also prevent relationships from becoming one-sided. Without them, you may find yourself giving endlessly while receiving little in return. Over time, that imbalance breeds bitterness. But with boundaries, you make sure the relationship has room for both people to thrive. They are reminders that love is not meant to drain, but to replenish. Of course, boundaries are not always easy to set. They can feel uncomfortable, especially with family or long-time friends. You may fear conflict, guilt, or rejection. But the discomfort of setting a boundary is far smaller than the pain of living without one. Silence allows disrespect to grow. Boundaries, even when difficult, create the conditions for healing and understanding. It's important to remember that boundaries are not ultimatums. They are not about control. They are about choice, your choice to protect your well-being and your choice to invite healthier patterns into the relationship. When framed this way, boundaries become less about saying no to others and more about saying yes to connection that honors both people. In fact, the presence of boundaries often deepens intimacy. When someone knows exactly where you stand, they don't have to wonder if they're crossing invisible lines. They can relax into the relationship, knowing honesty is welcomed and mutual respect is non-negotiable. That clarity creates freedom, and freedom is where authentic closeness is born. Ultimately, boundaries are an expression of love. Love for yourself because you are protecting your dignity and peace. And love for others because you are giving them the opportunity to meet you with respect instead of guessing where they stand. Far from building walls, boundaries build bridges strong enough to carry the weight of real, lasting connection. Silence is often mistaken for strength. We tell ourselves that holding back, swallowing the hurt, or letting things slide shows maturity. But silence in the face of disrespect doesn't heal it, it buries it. And what is buried rarely disappears, it festers. The pain stays alive beneath the surface, reshaping the relationship in ways we may not even notice until the weight becomes unbearable. When someone crosses a line and we say nothing, we unintentionally send a message, this is acceptable. Each unspoken moment reinforces the behavior. Over time, patterns form. The disrespect becomes normalized not because it's right, because it was never challenged. What feels like keeping the peace is often just teaching others how to continue hurting us. Speaking up doesn't have to be loud, aggressive, or dramatic. True strength lies in calm clarity. It's the ability to say, that's not okay with me, without apology. It's the courage to put words to the discomfort instead of masking it with a smile. And it's the understanding that honesty delivered with composure can reset the rules of engagement in a relationship. There's a cost to silence. It shows up as resentment, distance, and the slow erosion of trust. You may find yourself pulling back emotionally, avoiding interactions, or carrying bitterness that spills over into other areas of life. Silence protects the other person from discomfort, but it does so at your expense. And in the long run, the relationship suffers anyway. When you break the silence, you give the other person a chance to grow. They may not even realize how their actions have affected you. By voicing your truth, you invite awareness. You open the door to change. Of course, not everyone will accept that invitation, but at least you have given them the opportunity rather than assuming the worst in silence. Many people fear speaking up because they worry it will cause conflict. But conflict is not the enemy, disrespect is. Conflict handled with respect can deepen understanding. Silence, on the other hand, guarantees that nothing changes. The real risk is not in confrontation. It's in allowing patterns of harm to go unchallenged until the relationship breaks under their weight. The key is balance. Speaking up doesn't mean reacting in anger or trying to win an argument. It means standing firm in your truth, expressing it with steadiness, and refusing to diminish yourself for the sake of false harmony. Strength is not in how much pain you can endure quietly. Strength is in how clearly you can advocate for yourself while still leaving room for connection. By choosing words over silence, you rewrite the script. You show that your dignity is not negotiable, and you model what healthy communication looks like. Silence leaves relationships stuck in the same cycles. Speaking up creates the possibility of new ones where respect is no longer optional, but understood as the foundation. Compassion allows us to see beyond the surface of someone's behavior. It invites us to ask, what pain might they be carrying? What story led them here? When we approach others with compassion, we step into their humanity, recognizing that hurt often drives hurt. This perspective softens judgment and makes room for empathy, even when their actions are hard to accept. But compassion doesn't mean blind tolerance. Understanding why someone acts a certain way doesn't erase the impact of their behavior. You can see their wounds without allowing them to wound you repeatedly. Too often we confuse empathy with permission, thinking that because someone is struggling, we must endure their disrespect. Compassion without boundaries, however, is simply self-neglect. Holding compassion and accountability together is the balance. You can say, I understand where this comes from, but it's not okay. That simple truth honors both sides. It acknowledges their humanity without sacrificing your dignity. Compassion explains, but it does not excuse. Accountability ensures that understanding doesn't become an open door for harm. This balance matters most in close relationships. With family and friends, we often feel pressure to overlook, to minimize, or to excuse. But compassion doesn't ask you to lose yourself for the sake of harmony. Instead, it invites you to see clearly the person and their struggles, and yourself and your worth. Both truths can coexist without one diminishing the other. Compassion without compromise also reshapes how we respond. Instead of lashing out in anger or retreating into silence, we can speak with steadiness. We can say, I know you're hurting, but I won't accept being treated this way. This approach doesn't escalate the conflict, nor does it enable the harm. It communicates care and strength at the same time. It also protects us from bitterness. When we understand someone's behavior, we release the grip of resentment. We stop taking everything personally, recognizing that much of what people do reflects their own battles. But compassion ensures that even as we understand, we don't abandon ourselves. We don't turn empathy into a reason to remain in harm's way. Compassion without compromise is also a model for others. It shows that love can be both gentle and firm. It teaches that relationships don't thrive on enabling or control, but on clarity and care. By embodying this balance, we invite others to step into healthier ways of relating, ways that honor both their struggles and our boundaries. Ultimately, compassion without compromise transforms relationships. It allows us to meet others with humanity without erasing our own. It holds space for forgiveness without erasing responsibility. And it creates the kind of connection that is both kind and strong, where empathy and dignity walk hand in hand. Family is often spoken of as something sacred, untouchable, and permanent. We grow up hearing that family comes first. That blood is thicker than water. That loyalty is unconditional. But the truth is, family is not defined solely by biology. Blood may connect us, but respect and love sustain us. Without those, even the closest ties can become chains instead of bonds. History also plays a powerful role in how we view relationships. Friends who have been in our lives for years feel irreplaceable. Shared memories create a sense of obligation. We've known each other forever, so I must keep this going. But time alone does not justify mistreatment. The length of a relationship should never outweigh the quality of it. Redefining family and friendship means shifting the focus from obligation to respect. It means asking not just who has been here the longest, but who shows up with love, kindness, and consistency. Relationships are not sacred simply because they exist. They are sacred because of how people choose to honor one another within them. Sometimes the family we are born into cannot give us what we need. They may love us in their own way, but if that love is tangled with control, judgment, or disrespect, it leaves us empty. In those moments, we learn the power of chosen family, the friends, mentors, or partners who love us not out of duty, but out of recognition of who we truly are. Chosen family reminds us that connection is about alignment, not obligation. They don't diminish us to fit their comfort. They don't hold us hostage to roles we never agreed to play. Instead, they see us, value us, and walk beside us because they want to, not because they have to. That kind of love often feels freer, deeper, and more genuine than the love we were told we or deserve by birthright. Redefining family and friendship also gives us permission to release what harms us. It doesn't mean cutting people off without thought, but it does mean no longer sacrificing your being on the altar of tradition. You can honor where you came from without allowing it to dictate where you're going. You can love your family without letting them define your worth. This redefinition requires courage. It means accepting that some relationships will never become what you hoped they would be. It means grieving the version of family or friendship you wanted, while embracing the reality of what you deserve. And it means giving yourself permission to build connections that actually reflect the love and respect you long for. When you embrace this perspective, you stop asking, who am I supposed to keep close? And start asking, who lifts me higher when I am with them? That question reshapes everything. It frees you from the weight of obligation and allows you to create a circle of relationships built not on guilt or history, but on respect, authenticity, and love. Respect is not something you can force from another person. Demanding it rarely works because true respect isn't rooted in fear or obligation. It's rooted in choice. People respect others when they recognize their worth, when they value the relationship enough to treat it with care. That means respect cannot be taken by force. It can only be cultivated through the way both people show up for each other. Mutual respect is like a dance. Both partners contribute, both listen, both adjust to maintain balance. If only one person is doing the work, the dance quickly falls apart. In relationships, the same is true. If you give respect but receive none in return, the connection becomes lopsided, heavy, and unsustainable. Relationships thrive when respect flows in both directions. Respect also requires consistency. A single kind gesture is not enough to outweigh a pattern of disregard. True respect shows up in the everyday moments. Listening without interrupting, honoring boundaries, speaking truth without cruelty. When both sides commit to these small acts, trust builds and the relationship grows stronger. But when respect is missing, you face a choice. You can reset the terms by speaking up, clarifying your boundaries, and giving the other person the chance to rise to a new standard. Sometimes, people don't realize the impact of their behavior until it is named. In those moments, your voice can be the catalyst for change, opening the door to a healthier dynamic. At the same time, not everyone will be willing or able to meet you there. Some may resist, dismiss, or reject your call for mutual respect. That is when the second option comes into play, stepping away. Walking away is not an act of cruelty, it's an act of preservation. It is choosing not to remain in a space where your dignity is optional. Stepping away can feel like loss, but in reality, it is alignment. It aligns your actions with your worth. It prevents you from pouring into a relationship that drains more than it gives. And it creates space for connections where respect is natural, not negotiated. When respect is reciprocal, relationships feel lighter. They don't require constant defending or explaining. They flow with ease because both people know they are valued. That mutuality doesn't erase conflict, it makes conflict easier to navigate. Even in disagreement, respect keeps the bond intact, ensuring that the argument doesn't become an attack on one another's humanity. Ultimately, respect is not about winning or losing, it's about balance. It's about creating relationships where dignity is mutual and non-negotiable. And when that balance is missing, you always have the power to decide whether to reset the terms or to step away in order to protect your own worth. From the time we are young, many of us are taught to seek approval. We learn that good children make their parents proud, good students please their teachers, and good friends avoid conflict. Over time, this conditioning can become so strong that the fear of disappointing others outweighs the desire to honor ourselves. Approval becomes a kind of currency, and we spend our lives chasing it, often at the cost of our own growth. But growth and approval rarely travel together. Growth asks you to step into the unknown, to challenge old patterns, to outgrow roles that once kept others comfortable. Approval, on the other hand, thrives on predictability. It rewards you for staying the same, for fitting into the mold others expect. Choosing growth often means breaking that mold, and in doing so, risking disapproval. Disappointing others is not easy. It stirs guilt, fear, and the worry that love will be withdrawn. But avoiding disappointment comes at a cost. It asks you to disappoint yourself instead. Every time you silence your truth to maintain harmony, you trade authenticity for acceptance. Over time, that trade chips away at your sense of self until you hardly recognize who you are. Choosing growth requires courage because it forces you to stand in the tension. You must face the possibility that people you care about will not understand. Some may resist your change, some may criticize it, and some may walk away altogether. That loss is painful, but it is also clarifying. It reveals who is invested in controlling you and who is committed to seeing you thrive. There is a unique kind of freedom that comes when you stop living for approval. Suddenly, decisions are no longer about what will keep everyone else comfortable. They become about alignment, what matches your values, your purpose, your dignity. That shift transforms the way you move through the world. Instead of asking, will they approve, you begin asking, does this honor me? And the paradox is this: when you stop chasing approval, the relationships that remain often deepen. The people who stay are those who respect you not for what you give up, but for who you are becoming. They may not always agree, but they allow space for your growth because they value you beyond your compliance. In that environment, connection feels lighter, freer, and more authentic. Growth is not about rebellion for its own sake. It's not about disappointing others as a point of pride. It's about choosing honesty over performance. It's about giving yourself permission to evolve, even if it means outgrowing the version of yourself that others are comfortable with. It's about valuing your future more than their approval. At its core, choosing growth over approval is an act of self-respect. It is the recognition that your life is yours to live, and that the cost of living it for someone else's expectations is too high. True freedom is found not in pleasing everyone, but in honoring yourself, even when it means walking a path that others may not yet understand.